Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another conversation with the Liberian Bitcoin Blockchain and Cryptocurrency Forum. My name is Beyan, and today I have some very awesome people with me, some very special guests, and we're going to be having this discussion about a lot of things. We'll be talking about the crypto market. We'll also be talking about Cardano. We'll be asking some questions and be pretty much just having a discussion to see where Cardano is, where the project is. And my special guest too, Darlington, will be talking a little bit about what he's doing in this space, in the Cardano community. I have Ernesto also yet with me. We're just going to go ahead and do a quick introduction. And basically, gentlemen, just tell me what you do in the space, what you're working on right now. So let's start with you, Ernesto.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Ben. So I'm involved with the Alkebuleum DAO. The Alkebuleum DAO basically is a decentralized organization that is that have a goal to build an African blockchain layer one. So that's one of the projects I'm working on. And then I'm also the CEO and founder of a Bracket. It's a DApp, decentralized application, more like a social network where we can have more like an African digital economy on there. So that's what I'm working on to developing that application. So currently, these are the two things I'm working on in space right now.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. Yes, you got your hand full there, man. Working on a DAO and in a layer one blockchain, that's a lot of work. Just that. Working on one of those things is a lot of work. Darlington.
Yeah, that is a lot. I'm a little higher up the stack. I do a lot of education in I'm with primarily with lighternation.com and the Lighter Nation crew. And we do a lot of user education in simple English, Kiswahili and Espanol. And we're just teaching people about the blockchain, how to use it, how to make informed decisions. And then I'm a software engineer and DevOps by trade. So I also do a lot of building. I don't write a lot of smart contracts. I do a lot of more on helping businesses integrate blockchain and like solve specific real-fi business problems. And I have a dev shop in developing a developer capacity in Kenya, where I do a lot of apprentices and trying to get recent graduates into the blockchain ecosystem and how to develop and help businesses solve problems using the blockchain, primarily on Cardano.
Jeez. So you guys are teaching folks how to develop on Cardano's platform, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah. How to talk to it, how to understand its data structures, how to build special crawlers and indexes and stuff like that.
Man, that is amazing. I remember a few years ago, Cardano, not Charles, but Cardano actually had a program somewhere in Ethiopia where they were teaching young girls how to program using Haskell, the computer language programming, right? So it seems like Cardano is always involving in things like that. And I'm pretty sure Cardano is probably sponsoring that program, is it? Or is it coming out of your pocket?
A little bit of both, not directly. Cardano has when you pay transaction fees on Cardano, it doesn't all go to the people that run the system. On some blockchains, the fees get burned, or it goes to the miners, or if you're familiar with Bitcoin. On Cardano, only a portion goes to the people who run the node. The rest of it goes into a treasury for future uses.
Yes.
One of those uses is like every now and then, about every 3 months or so, a chunk of it is taken out and is given to other people who help Cardano flourish besides the stake pool operator. So people like me who's running a program in Kenya can apply for a grant and get some money out of the treasury that way. So that's how that lab was funded in Kenya, is through that treasury innovation funding grant system.
Absolutely, man. That's awesome, man. We're glad you guys are doing work in Kenya and other countries. I think part of our next conversation would be how to get some of those programs into Liberia and other places, and what infrastructure that needs to be set up to make that happen. But before we get deeper into our discussion here, hey guys, what do you guys think about what's going on in the market right now? I know a lot of you probably are not so much into like price, what's going on with the prices of some of these blockchain company and like Ethereum and Polkadot. But what's your assessment of the market in terms of like, you know, the condition of the market? We saw that XRP recently just won one of the, I guess, clarity step. They're not entirely clear, but they have achieved something. What does that mean for the crypto space in terms of regulations?
To be frank, that's what I was trying to figure out too. Now I've been following the space. I try to follow the space to be updated about the different events that are happening, because it will help us to Alkebuleum DAO to know how to structure some of our approach, even our products and legal way of doing things and everything else. And one of the things that we're looking at is the SEC and some other government regulations, when it comes to crypto. And with these courts proceedings are going on, it's supposed to help after the case is over to clarify some legal understanding. So after Cardano, not Cardano, but after XRP case, I try to look at the case and the way the judge handled it, and for what reason that they said they were not security. And I'm still trying to figure out, but it's still not clear to me yet. I wish somebody can explain to me better, to have a very good understanding how then their token or their coin is not security. That will help us, for future of our project too, to have an idea on how to structure it, so that we don't also fall in that same category that they fell in. When it comes to the price,
learning from ripples, learning from others' mistakes, so that you don't do the same.
Exactly, and especially whenever the judges or the law is applied to those cases, and they help us to have an understanding of how we can approach, the industry. So that's one thing, and especially because now we have so many founders or companies in court now, it gives the market, to have a little bit unstable, instability in terms of pricing, right? And even the market perception. So you have, I think, Coinbase is in court, you have Binance is in court, and then SRP just got out of there. So it's like, all these cases, it will help us to have a better understanding. So for me, I'm just looking at the results of the case, and I want to understand how the case was judged.
Now with that, with the XRP getting out of the SEC situation, with the judge coming up and saying all of that. Recently, Cardano was mentioned. The SEC did mention Cardano to be one of the company that they're going to be looking at legally. So I don't know, how's that? I haven't really dived into what the charges are. Do you know anything about that, Darlington?
Yeah, the FCC, when they sued Coinbase, they listed some examples of securities. They weren't exhaustive in their lists, but some of the examples they gave was Cardano, Solana. I think there was like 3 or 4 other tokens that they explicitly listed, and then they said, and others are security offerings that Coinbase is offering. But even in that case, going back to your question with the market, that case with Coinbase and the FCC, it's not going well. It's not going well at all, because the judge, one of the motion that was denied recently, the judge explicitly told the FCC that these guys have been acting in good faith and trying to get clarity. So you can't say that, they haven't been. So that case is still ongoing. We'll see where it ends up. The Ripple case, the big takeaway win for me there was that not because something was sold as a security offering, that it means the thing itself is a security. If I wanted to, I could take this glass and sell it to you as a security and be in trouble with the FCC. but that doesn't mean glasses are certainly everywhere in the world are securities, you know.
Yes. Ah,
So
right,
so
right.
Ripple is still in trouble for selling, making a security offering. And then the other thing that came out of the FCC case that I really, the Ripple case that I really liked, that goes that is strong for crypto is that, um, just the fact that you and I, retail investor, buy crypto on an exchange does not mean we're buying security or that crypto is a security because we don't know who we're buying it from, you know, like we don't know who owns those crypto that's on the exchanges. And for you to have a security, you know, I'm not a lawyer. I just preface that and say I'm
Yeah.
not a lawyer. This is just my
Yeah,
understanding of what came out.
but Darlington, Ernesto, we all know it's been the SEC hasn't really provided any sort of clarity with this
Right,
whole asset class, cryptocurrencies. We haven't
right,
really gotten any sense of like clarity as to, hey, these are the guidelines to follow. And there's been situations where even some of these owners uh, of, well, I won't call them owners, but the head of some of those blockchain companies have actually met with officials from the SEC in order to ask them questions and say, look, we're building this product here. What can we do to make sure that we are in alignment with the SEC?
right.
And in some cases, they didn't tell them anything. In some cases, they told
Yeah.
them one thing and then came back and say, hey, well, what we told you, you can't take it word for word. So this is crazy. But anyways, we're not
You
gonna.
know, the US is one of the few places where you have different political different body managing security and different bodies managing commodity, or like you have different people managing the markets
Yes.
with different ideologies. In most countries, it's just one entity. So you get a coherent
So
messaging, you
yes,
get,
yes,
you know,
yes.
you don't get the
Ah, so
flip-flop,
you get all
you
these
know.
like
Yeah,
conflating
right.
positions, and everybody's trying to basically have something to be under their jurisdiction.
Right, right. Yeah, we have the FCC and we have the CFTC or something. But then I guess just to round up on that, the how I feel about crypto, Congress is understanding crypto more and more. Like when Congress talks about crypto these days, yes, there's still some outliers that still doesn't understand crypto yet, but more and more members in Congress are understanding the asset class and are thinking about laws and legislation. And then of course, you know, if we're gonna go down the price pipe, the Bitcoin halving is just around the corner, right? So that's got to bode well
Yeah.
for the market conditions. And then I think BlackRock just filed for some vehicle that will allow a lot of institutional money to get into crypto.
Right.
So the market is going good. The market is going good. The tech has been iterating for a while now, so they're gonna come out with new products that people can use. Folks like what your DAO is building, right? Once that come on the market, and people can actually start using the thing, that bodes well for the whole industry. So
Yeah, I tell people also too, just adding to your point before we move up to Cardano here, is in a bull market. We're in a bull market, right? Not a bull market, a bear market right now, where uh, um, prices are low. But what's interesting is development hasn't really stopped. All of these companies are still developing. People are still working on things. Like Alkebuleum is still working on things. It doesn't matter whether the market is down or the market is up. The engineers are still working. They're still developing. The product is still being made. So at the end of the day, the prices of things doesn't really reflect the 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 productivity behind some of these projects currently. So, and with the US and regulations, we just really hope that the US doesn't screw up on this, because if they do, then all of the engineers, people like Ernesto and Darlington, and might be leaving the US to go to places like Switzerland or Kenya to go and program
hey,
there, or
first they
Liberia.
ignore you, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. I think we're getting close to the winning part, so I'm not too worried.
I hope so. I hope so. That takes us into our conversation for today. We're going to be talking about the Cardano's blockchain, which is, everybody know ADA. I think it's the number 7th, 8 on CoinMarketCap. Is actually a very prominent project that has currently billions of dollars in market cap. But Cardano would tell you, Cardano would be the first to say that don't mean nothing. Billions of dollars don't mean nothing. We're going to talk about Cardano today and what Cardano is doing. And we have someone who is an ambassador of the Cardano project. That's massive, you know. He's in the Twin City here with me, and I've met Darlington a few times. So, Darlington, what is Cardano, ADA, and what makes it different from other cryptocurrency projects out there?
Cardano. Yeah, Cardano is, I think amongst the crypto nerds, you hear them refer to it as a third generation blockchain, cryptocurrency that's proof of stake. And just what that technically means is just that this whole idea of blockchain is not new. People have been talking about this since the 80s. Bitcoin was the first time we could create something usable. And that still is running today. The Bitcoin network is the oldest running blockchain network now. And then Ethereum came along and it pushed Bitcoin further from as far as usability go. And then Cardano came along and made some different choices. So every time we iterate on this blockchain thing, we give it a different generation, like iPhone 14, iPhone 10. So Cardano is a third generation blockchain. And it's also proof of stake. So when Cardano came along, it looked at Bitcoin, looked at Ethereum, it said, okay, we don't like the way Ethereum does things. It makes itself really vulnerable to security risk. There's just so many touch points, which can lead to security, breaches. We like the way Bitcoin does things. Bitcoin does things in a way that is like the way you would handle a cash register. Everything is local. It's only information that's needed for a transaction to succeed is ever present. So it makes it really hard to like manipulate other things around the blockchain because all you have is the stuff that is pertinent to your immediate transaction, which is pretty cool. So it took that and then it removed the proof of work in an effort to be just more conservative with energy and not be as energy intensive, and it put in proof of stake. And so you have Cardano. It's like if Bitcoin had proof of stake and programmability, that would be Cardano.
Wow. So now for a project like Cardano that's trying to remove some of those like extra things from the extra data that are very unnecessary, that the system doesn't really need to have to slow it down. What benefit is that though? And that's so you can answer this question too for, for let's say a layer one blockchain like Cardano or maybe even Alkebuleum to get rid of unnecessary data and only keep data that are necessary towards that transaction. Like I know Cardano talk a lot about metadata and things like that. So what is the benefit
I will
for the
say
blockchain?
it's a trade-off, right? That's not great for certain things. If you try to build certain types of application, it becomes really challenging. Like if you try to build DEX on Cardano, it's much harder to do than if you are building a DEX on Ethereum. Ethereum is pretty straightforward. You have access to when you're doing a transaction, you have access to the entire global state. You can know anything that's happening in any part of the Ethereum network as long as you have enough money to pay for your program to run, right? So there's that trade-off there. But the reason why Cardano went with not having a global state is because it believes we don't know how people will want to use the blockchain, and some of those specific applications that might require global state, the philosophy there is maybe that goes to a side chain, but the main chain should be simple and it should be local. And then what you get from having it be local is you can parallelize things. So we have a program in Kenya where people learn about Cardano and they earn $1 every day that they learn about Cardano. We've got about 500 people in that program. And we get about consistently 200 to 300 people withdrawing their earnings every day. Some people will stack it for 2 days, 3 days, but by every day we get 200 to 300 people withdrawing their earnings. When we go to send out those payments to 200 people, we do one transaction and pay less than 40 cents in fees. A single transaction, less than 40 cents in fees to give 200 people ADA. And that's having that local state makes those kind of things possible, right?
Now the question
Because
too is still if they are trying to compartmentalize the data, right? Put it in compartments based on and pretty much pull out what's needed, right?
right.
The question now will be, I did like you talk about it, it's pros and cons. What are some of the cons with that? Of
Yeah, well, the cons is what I said before. Anything that requires global information, like Texas, and it's not impossible to do on Cardano, it's just harder to do, right? Anything that requires you to know more information, right? To be able to get stuff from over here, get stuff from over there.
oh,
Like
okay.
when you try to get smart contracts to talk to each other, it's harder to do on Cardano because there's not really this idea of shared state, like the way Ethereum has. So those kind of things are harder. And I think again, the whole idea is that some of the stuff goes off of the main chain and it goes to a side chain that is secured by the main chain. And then
Oh, so
if you do get
whenever it's needed, it can
right,
be pulled out.
right, it can be right exactly. So you can do all that stuff over there, and then you can settle it on the main chain. And then in exchange, you get a very secure transaction. You get a lower attack surface. You get this situation where if your transaction fail, you don't have to pay anything, right? Because you're not paying to use Cardano, you're paying for Cardano to do something, to validate something. So if it can't validate the thing,
Right.
you don't pay anything, which is really, really nice. And most importantly, because of the local state, that means you have much truer ownership of your crypto in Cardano than you would do, say, on Ethereum. Right? On
Right.
Ethereum, your ownership is proxied. So the actual token doesn't live with you. It lives on Ethereum, but you just have a key to like go access it. But that also means because it's on Ethereum and not with you, someone else could access it too. It can get frozen, it can get seized,
Oh,
right?
wow. It's
In
interesting.
Cardano, there is no like global place. Everything is in these little UTXO things, in these little bags that is with you. So they basically have to come crawling out of your cold dead hands. Like they have to find you and find your physical keys so they get those things. They can't seize it, they can't lock it, and those kinds of things, which is pretty cool. Like Bitcoin, right? Which
Yeah.
is pretty cool.
I like the fact that obviously there's pros and cons for everything though. And that's still in that sense where you're basically putting things inside chain in order to relieve the network of being loaded. What is the benefit? How does that contribute to scalability for a project like that? Building a layer one and what Cardano is doing, how would that help with scalability?
I mean, it's just interesting, listening to Darlington explaining about Cardano. You'll be surprised. I already had. I'm actually learning from the conversation, and understanding how these the Bitcoin system Cardano is built on top of, and then also Ethereum and some of the shortfalls and stuff. And Ethereum, as you asked about scalability, is also struggling with that, versus other blockchains like maybe I would say other ecosystem like um we
Cosmo, Polkadot.
Cosmos or Cosmos ecosystem where they have independent blockchains and moving around and they have this ecosystem and that's why Ethereum kind of doing now because the load of types that's sitting on Ethereum and the load of smart contracts and all the different coding. And as you understand, you have this they have this virtual machine or virtual state where they basically have all these things crowd up in, right? So you have this load on this network. So the network load, it cannot sustain the load. For that reason, you need to like distribute some of the work to other side chains that will just put, maybe like a mapping information on the main chain to basically validate it. So now they have this layer 2, or now they have this zero knowledge blockchains where you have the local side chains that are doing most of their data work, and then you just send few information that is not too much to the main chain, just a validation, and stuff like that. So that is helping in Ethereum with the scalability. And I'm not too sure if that will even help in the future if things get even worse. But I think for now, that's a temporary measure they're taking to help to resolve that issue of scalability.
That's interesting. Like the issue of scalability has always been one of the most important issue in the whole crypto space. And even Cardano, when Cardano started, I think they pretty much go with this concept of scalability. They're trying to solve the scalability issue, interoperability issue, and sustainability, which is the governance model we talk about. Now, speaking in terms of interoperability, you talked about Darlington, you talked about how it makes it really difficult for different blockchain to communicate if you have all these metadata or these side chains of data being placed side chain in order to kind of speed up the network and keep the momentum going and making transaction more faster. How is that living up to Cardano's goal, which is interoperability? They want interoperability, which is communications between different blockchain. How would that allow Cardano to achieve that?
Yeah, I think so. Cardano have embraced something that's different from Bitcoin also. Cardano have embraced the concept that not everything needs to be run on the blockchain, right? So the Cardano blockchain doesn't actually like run your smart contract. It doesn't run a lot of complex coding. It just validates. It's like a giant validator. It's like a giant validator machine that you give it you take the thing that needs to be processed. The stake pool operator will run it locally on their own stake pool machine, but then they give the result of it and the original thing to Cardano, and then it can compare it, right? So the smart contract basically becomes like a blueprint or a recipe, right? So if you give somebody a recipe to make cornbread or cake, right? Cardano is not it's not gonna make the cake for you, but you can make a cake and give it a recipe, and they can look at the cake and look at the recipe and say yes, they're the same thing. And so that's what Cardano does, right?
You
So
see,
because of
it makes more sense to me when you start talking about cornbread.
I figure, right? I figure
That's
since
crazy.
this is the Liberian blockchain channel, right? And so I think the interoperability, that's a problem that Cardano wants to solve with some sort of mixture of on-chain and off-chain solutions, right? So maybe node agents that is run on the stake pool operators that can be secure and backed by that Cardano blockchain validation engine. The piece of code can still be run in a distributed manner and that's like secure and everything. But it doesn't have to like be on chain, right? So you can have this like networking layer that's sitting on top of the Cardano settlement layer that's responsible for interoperability and things of that nature. And then, of course, oracles. Cardano hasn't really targeted oracles in a big way yet, but oracles, I think, will play a big role in interoperability when it comes to blockchain tech. So
Nice,
we'll see how that
interesting.
plays out.
Yeah, because I've always known that Cardano is working on scalability, interoperability, and sustainability. Those are major problems, especially for those third generation cryptocurrency projects. Now, speaking in terms of sustainability, where governance comes in place, how can Cardano create this model where even if Charles, the founder, is actually, dies tomorrow, God forbid, we say in Liberia, the system can still go forward. The transactions can still be can still be performed and everything can operate. Like, hey, there's no owner. So the question now is, where is Cardano in terms of uh, obtaining decentralization and making sure uh, um, they can have that ultimate goal as they are seeking to? Are they fully decentralized right now? Are they partially decentralized? Are they working towards decentralization? Where are they?
Right. That's a great question. Oh, one quick thing too with interoperability that sometimes people forget. Sometimes interoperability isn't always like two things talking to each other, but just the ability for two things to understand the outputs that's being created. So a lot of crypto is about like computer cryptography and like secrets and like encoding things. So as long as you can have two complete separate blockchain, as long as they're sort of using the same cryptography and encoding and stuff, you can take something that was encoded with one blockchain, take it to a different blockchain, and it can still understand that thing. It can look at it, inspect it, see what's in it. So that's another layer of
So
interoperability
it's
too.
not just communication, it's actually just even
Yeah,
understanding.
right. Right, yeah, yeah. So, and so Cardano is making big strides in that. But on the governance part, like I mentioned earlier, Cardano has always had this concept of it takes more than one set of skills to make something like a blockchain ecosystem succeed. It's not just stake-pool operators. It's not just the core devs. It's not just influencers. Like everybody needs to do their part. Educators, researchers, people needs to run the stake pools. People needs to write the software. And so Cardano right now is going through a major milestone, like reaching towards a pretty major milestone of launching its governance model on the mainnet. And this basically will be a way that will enable companies who are building for Cardano, building on Cardano, who businesses rely on Cardano to have a voice. Stake-pool operators will have a voice, and every ADA holder will have a voice. And if you are not like on the beat enough to like be able to know what's happening and vote and things like that, you will be able to delegate your voting power to someone else.
Absolutely. And
Into
that was what the workshop, the Voltaire workshop was all about, right? Was
Yeah. So Cardano has these like giant milestones. There's like Byron. Byron was like when all the settlement layer stuff was figured out, who owes what and all that stuff. And then there was Shelley.
smart
Shelley
contract.
is when the smart contracts, the programmability and all that happened. And then now we're in this like dual last eras of Voltaire and oh man, I'm blanking on the other
Kogan,
one. No, Gauguin was part of Shelley, Voltaire, but basically the governance and the scalability. These are the last two pieces. And scalability is where the side chain comes in. You will hear this thing called Hydra.
yes.
It's like a think of Hydra as like Bitcoin Lightning Network on steroids, basically. Um, so that's that. And then we have the governance, which is Voltaire. When you hear that Voltaire thing, that's Cardano governance. And when that is like done, or at least the version one of it is done, um, you will be able to have like people be able to propose changes to Cardano at all different levels. So when the Cardano blockchain itself was developed, everything from the settlement layer all the way up. So Cardano has that two main layer, the settlement layer where all the settlement and money stuff happens. And then it has a separate computational layer for all the validation of smart contracts and things like that. But even across all those layers, there is like there's about 31 parameters that was put into place ahead of time. Depending on how you change these parameters, Cardano can work like a very different blockchain, depending on what you set these parameters to. And that was intentional, right? We don't know how people want to use Cardano. So they put these parameters in that can really change how Cardano function. Um, and so all of these parameters will be available to be governed by the community once Voltaire happens. So someone can go in and say, Okay, we need to lower the transaction fee. Okay, we need to be able to run much bigger smart contract. Okay, we need to increase the block size. It just goes on and on and on and on the different ways you can fine tune the parameters. And so that governance model makes it so we don't have to rely on Charles, right? Any company or any other smart person can come along who understand this stuff and can put out a proposal to say, hey, we should change, these 3 parameters for these reasons. Let's put it to a vote, and the whole chain can vote on it. And once the chain votes on it, and the vote passes, it will automatically get executed. Those parameters will get updated, which is pretty cool. And then of course, that whole governance layer is a huge part of Cardano's sustainability model, right? Cardano believes that people should not work for free. That's a big, big tenet of Cardano. You should get paid for the work you do. That's why 20%, every transaction that happens to Cardano pays a 20% tax. Now, the transaction fee is not that much. It's like 0.17 ADA, but still, one of my clients usually say a small percent of a big number is still a big number, right? So if you put all those transactions together and you take a 20% off of it, it's still a pretty decent chunk. Right now, that amounts to about 50 million ADA every 40 days. About
50
50
million
million
ADA
ADA.
every 40 days. So that means ADA right now is about 30. That's at 30 cents. So we're talking about at least something around like, you know, let's say 17 ADA, $17 million every 40 days generated. That's
Yeah,
pretty
pretty
decent money.
much. Yeah,
Now
yeah,
how is that, and that goes into the
right.
treasury, right? Now, how is that money distributed across whether it's the stake pool, or what percentage goes towards the stake pool, and what percentage is used for future developer to actually improve the network? And I know there's a lot of other uh, committees and systems that are within that process. How is it distributed? How's the distribution process like?
So there hasn't been a lot of distribution so far. It's just been growing. There's about 1.2 billion ADA in the treasury right now. It's because we don't have a governance system yet. So right now, the only people that sort of get direct money from the treasury are, so other money comes into a pot, 20% goes to the treasury. The rest, most of it goes to the stake pool operators, and then the rest of it goes to the delegators. I guess you can just say 80% goes to incentivizing staking. So the stake pool operators and the delegators. So if you hold
Ah,
ADA, you don't have to run a server. You can just find a pool that runs a server and say, hey, I'm gonna stake my ADA with this pool. The ADA stays with you the whole time. You don't actually send your ADA, because again, Cardano, everything is local. Nothing like lives central to anything. Everything is always in your possession. But you just associate it's almost like when you stick to a pool, you're like increasing your reputation basically.
oh,
Or
nice.
increase, yeah.
So you're
So you're not
strengthening the
actually giving them
reputation
your
of.
ADA, right? You're strengthening their reputation by staking to them, but you don't actually give them your actual ADA, which is that's not how staking work on any chain that I've seen so far. If there's another chain out there where you can stake without locking up your ADA, please leave that in the comments. I would love to learn about it. Um, right. But yeah, so and then once the 20% goes into the treasury, this is where Voltaire and the governance model is supposed to come into place to where somebody can go in and make a governance action to do a treasury withdrawal.
Hmm.
So far, what's been happening, we've been sort of experimenting with what it might look like to run a VC fund, like a community-based VC fund.
Mhm.
You will hear something called Project Catalyst. That's what that's about. And so this is like pre-Voltaire, pre-governance. And this is just the current 3 governing entities, IOG, the Cardano Foundation, and Emergo, who currently have the power to take money out of the treasury because they hold those keys. They are the one who's been able to pull money out every now and then to do this Project Catalyst experiment thing.
Now, how
So
does
right now,
that
if
the just to kind of cut in right there, the Cardano Foundation has those keys. Now, is it a person that owns that key, or is it more like
so
a,
there's
do they have
five
a
keys shared
custodian?
between three of them. There's 5 keys shared between those 3 companies. So these are not people, right? These are
Ah,
like companies, right? That
yes.
that
I
has
know it's Emergo,
mm,
IOHK, and Cardano Foundation, right?
yeah, and they share 5 keys. I'm not sure who has how many and where, but it's 5 keys between those 3 people.
5 keys between those 3 people. That's interesting because I'm thinking like, do they have one person in having access to a key? That's that can be a little scary.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I would guess there's probably a multi-signature situation
I
involved. I
would
mean, this
think
is
so.
cryptography we're talking about now, right? And
Yeah,
with
yeah.
cryptography, you can get as complex as you want. And the Cardano Foundation is based in Switzerland. If you base your foundation in Switzerland, you pretty much have to follow a script on how to run it.
Yeah,
Like you don't get to
true,
do whatever you want.
true. Because
So they have to follow strict Swiss law and all that stuff
I'm
around
thinking,
that.
Cardano have those 3 entities. They have Emergo, they have, which is pretty much the uh, Emergo is like IOHK is the developer. Cardano
Yeah.
Foundation is the nonprofit, pretty much, and then Emergo, I think, is like the public relations.
Emergo wrote the check to
They
pay
write they
IOG
write the
when
check,
it started.
and they're
They
in
wrote the first check. Yeah,
nice, nice, nice.
yeah,
And they have their company somewhere in Japan, I think. That's
yeah.
where
They're based in
that's where
Japan.
they're based in Japan. Okay. That's interesting. I was just considering like thinking, well, all those keys they have to get access to the treasury. I wasn't sure if it's, one person or 2 people or a person having full access to that
Well,
key and the
if out
danger of
of you
that.
knew if you or I knew that, then that would be a security breach right there, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
I remember many, right? I remember many years ago, when I used to work at the bank, and I'm not
yeah,
gonna say the name of which bank, but to access the vault, right, where the money is, you need what we call dual control. Dual control is like two
right.
people. I have a key, my coworker has a key. If we have to go take out like $100,000 from the vault, I put in my key in the vault, and the other person comes and put in their key, and the vault's open, and then we go in there and get the money out. So, you know, I don't know where the technology is right now in terms of dual control and multi signature.
Well, I mean, with Bitcoin and Cardano, that you might hear this thing, people say, oh, it's UTXO. Basically what that means is the thing that needs to be moved, that needs to be spent or transferred or whatever, it will have like a field where you can have little like, let me just say public key, but you can have little like badges or something. We'll just call them badges, but the public key, right? You can have little badges on there. So if there's 2 badges on there, that means you have to provide 2 secret keys to match those badges, to match those public keys. And you can have as many on there. You can have 2, you can have 4, you can have 50, right? So it's the technology to say, hey, for this thing to be unlocked, you need to have n number of signatures. That exists in cryptography, and
Wow.
it exists with the UTXO model.
And there's probably
Um,
limitation too on the withdrawal based on, I guess, what I mean, limitation on the amount of ADA that can be accessed from that treasury.
it's pretty
Because
simple right
if it's
now.
40,
It's pretty simple.
if the total amount of ADA in the treasury is 40 accessible to just an import of one person's key or 2 people key, whether it's dual control, then obviously it's kind of like the bank thing. We have dual control where I have my key, my coworker has that key, but we don't have access to all of the money in the vault. We can
Yeah,
open
what
like
you're
a section
describing
of the
now
vault.
is like, I think what you're describing is programmability, right? Smart
Right,
contract.
right.
So it's not in a smart contract, right?
It's not yet.
I think it's not in a smart contract, and that's part the whole point of Voltaire, right? Those keys will get retired.
Right.
it gets into this new system where there'll be all these new rules that's baked directly into the chain and all that stuff, right? Right
Sure.
now, it's a simple, you need to have 3 keys present to sign, up to 5 to move money. And what depend you, and this is the thing with Bitcoin and Cardano, you can do things, you just can do them in secret. So if someone is moving money, like everybody would know that they're moving money. Like they would know who keys sign it. Like these entities know whose their keys are, right? And so if IOG wanted to become a corrupt company and go out of business, I guess they could try to do that. But right now, what they've been using it for is to take out a little bit of ADA every now and then, to just run these experiments of what it would be like to have a VC fund.
Yeah.
Do that experiment, they've given out, they used to do it in US dollars, so I wasn't tracking how much exact ADA that was, but they've given out over 38 million worth of ADA over like 2 years. And then the new round of this like VC community VC thing just started. So in September, they will be giving out 50 million ADA. And right now there's there is about 1,600 proposals on the ballot who's vying for that 50 million ADA. If you want to learn more about this, you can go to, and I think Beyan will leave links in the show notes, but you can go to projectcatalyst.io to learn more about how all that works. And if you're building something on Cardano, you should go try to get money for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, projects like Alkebuleum that are building um, a layer one platform that can really, really transform the continent. Hopefully it can be interoperable with, projects like Cardano and other projects in this space. So it'll be nice for Alkebuleum to start looking at how to get access to some of those funds too. You know, I'm pretty sure having access to those funds is not just limited on building your system on Cardano, or is it?
It pretty much is for now.
Okay, okay,
Oh,
sure.
like attaching to. That's what I was gonna ask you.
I
What
like how
is your
sincere I like how sincere that Darlington is. It's like
Straight up.
I feel a lot of you, man. It's
It's like
actually for
it's
now
like
it's like
so you can't get none of that money if you're not building something on,
Well, let me
right.
ask you,
you know.
what's your interoperability story? When we get to
So
building.
we actually uh, we have a good vision, or I would say very big vision, when it comes to the African space and in general the global African community. We saw a need to create a layer one blockchain, and people ask why layer one, why not layer two, or maybe why not just adopt. One of the reasons why we went into that, because like what you explaining about the treasury, all these transaction fee, there's treasury, and then what is done with this money, it depends on what the focus of the funders are, because money is money. It doesn't matter how they love people or love things, but when money comes into play, people now brings their own vision and goal to that money. So our idea was, we don't really have a lot of VCs in our community. We don't have a lot of funding sources for our projects. So whenever we have a blockchain where transactions going through and this treasury is growing, we can be able to fund our African projects and stuff like that. That's a very good benefit from that project. So what we look at is Ethereum, right? I understand, you guys on Bitcoin side, which is fine. I really, it's almost like between Democrats and Republicans. I really don't care whichever one. It's just that I just want to get a job done, right? So we're looking more towards Ethereum now because of the whole smart contract thing, right? They being the originator for it, and they have this Web3 tool set that is so usable and easy to learn. Also, like a lot of developers have been using it already. So we're in our ecosystem, and we want to explore more and be around there. And we want to be interoperable with Ethereum layer 2s and even Ethereum itself. And also we're looking at Cosmos because they have this thing called FMOS now, which is like Ethereum Cosmos, which is like a gateway between Ethereum and Cosmos. And we believe the future is more, like maybe the government of Liberia or some entity in Liberia will have their own blockchain, their little smaller blockchain down there. And because they don't want the data to be all on international blockchains, then to validate the transactions that could connect to another bigger blockchain and have better validators. So our idea is basically not to have this one blockchain and just hold onto it, but also make it in a way where we can plan for the future, where if people want to have the independent blockchain, they can still connect to this one big African blockchain that will have validators that have experience, and also all these treasury that we have growing. So the idea of interoperability is that future. That's what we're looking towards. We want to make sure that it can work with other systems. Even Bitcoin too, we'll make sure that it should be interoperable with the Bitcoin kind of systems. So that's
interoperability is actually is a very important problem, especially in the space. I mean, instead of having all these individual projects and platforms just pretty much interacting with themselves, they have to operate with others. Even the banking system right now, they are all technically interoperable. They're operating at a lightning speed because they communicated with each other, very quickly. And you can take a bank check from Wells Fargo and cash it in Chase Bank. That's interoperability. So it's really nice to know that blockchain is actually, some of these projects like Cardano and Alkebuleum are actually working towards achieving that process here. Before we wrap things up here real quick.
Wait, 1 second, Beyan.
Yes.
Where do you bank where you have lightning speed? My check still takes 2 days. I need to switch my bank.
Right? That was supposed to be sarcastic, but I'm glad you picked that up. It's not lightning speed.
I do have a question.
Settlements happens, but it takes a little longer with the legacy system,
Ben,
yes.
Real quick, I do have a question for Darlington. It happened that this week I had a call from one of my former boss who is working in Congo, and he was interested in this field of cryptocurrency, and I guess because they've been seeing me doing things online, Facebook, so they called me to ask me. And his question was, he want to get in the field, but when it comes to wallets and stuff like that, how do they in Africa hop on these systems, And I referenced into Coinbase and Binance, and he said the onboarding is so complicated. They require many different legal things and all these things. So he said in Congo way is there's no way for them to get on it. So I was like, okay, let me research a little bit more and I'll find, because I've been in Africa for a long time. I don't know what works there, right? But since you've been working in Kenya and stuff like that, you may have an idea on what is mostly used when it comes to people over there, because they don't really have the identity thing going on like here. So how do they, which system do they hop on to, to connect with the systems?
Yeah, if you're new coming into blockchain, unfortunately you can't get around it. Take some time to understand the wallets and the passphrase and how that stuff works, because the big benefit with blockchain now is that your value isn't being held on your behalf. It's with you. You write it on a piece of paper. It's typically associated with 24 words, right, that you write down. And anytime you have value, it's associated with those 24 words, and you can take those 24 words and put them into these different wallet applications to be able to interact with that crypto or that digital coin. If you use stuff like Coinbase or any kind of website that lets you put digital tokens there that don't give you those 24 words, then that means they are holding it on your behalf.
Yes.
And if they get hacked or if they go out of business, you don't really have a lot of legal recourse to get that digital token back.
Because you don't have your
so you really want to, right? Yeah, you really want to, and it ought to be 12, 15, or 24. So you want to learn about the seed phrase, the wallet. You want to learn about whether it's 12, depending on the blockchain, or 15 or 24. You want to learn about that and what that means, and then you want to write that down and put it somewhere safe when only you know how to get access to it. And then once you've done that, then depending on which blockchain you're going into, you just want to go online and look at different reviews of the different wallet applications and see why people pick the one to pick within that specific blockchain, and like pick the one that looks like it's being ran by adults and not children, and then you can use that to interface with the blockchain. And if you do it that way, where you're taking your 24 words and you're putting it into some software that can read the blockchain, then you don't have to do the ID and all that stuff, because it's just between you and the users and the blockchain directly. There's no like website sitting in the middle.
Yeah,
So,
and
so
that
I have
comes
a,
with
I have a
that
trade,
comes
I
with
have
a
a
lot of
trading.
personal responsibility too,
What if you want to trade, like, like how we buy HRP and then the price goes up, we sell it, how
Yeah,
would
so
they
what I say, so there are different ways you can trade. Like if you're in Congo and in Kenya, what I've done in the past, there are services, I think it's called Yellow Card or yellow something, where you can put crypto in and get it out into a mobile money, or sometimes you can get it directly into your bank account. But when you're not ready to trade, keep it with you associated with those 24 words. When you're ready to trade, then you take it and you send it to the exchange, right? And then you trade it. But you don't keep it there. When you're ready to trade it, you put it on the exchange, you trade it, and then you get on with the business.
and
You should be treating the exchange like a public bathroom. You
I
go
agree.
in, your business, you get out.
I agree. And then too, just adding to Darlington's point of view, if you're getting on an exchange, there's two different types of exchanges right now. There are centralized exchanges and there are decentralized exchanges. So centralized exchanges will be exchanges like Coinbase and Binance and other exchanges that are centralized, that are ran by a centralized entity, right? Now, on a centralized exchange, there's a pro and cons for a centralized exchange. The pro for a centralized exchange is you can have access to your wallet because they pretty much own your private key. They have your private key because it's centralized. For example, if you can access your account on Coinbase, you just gotta go to Coinbase and say, "Hey, forgot password." Or send your password to your email or your cell phone, and then you can retrieve it and get access to your funds. Now, that's pro because it's like a bank. If you don't have you lost your ID, you go to the bank asks you questions. What is your social security number? What is this? You answer it. Boom, you get access to your bank account. It's because it's centralized. On a decentralized, now the pro, that's the pro. Now the cons for having your money on a centralized exchange, because they have access to your private key. When something happens to that centralized exchange, if they get hacked or something, well, there you go. You just lose your money, right? If there's some sort of evil actors on that exchange, well, you just lose your money. So it's pros and cons. You have security where you can have access, but you can also lose your money if there's a bad actor within the system. Now, on a decentralized, you're pretty much given your private key, which is the C phrase that Darlington just talked about. You're in possession of getting access to your account. Now, if you lose that key that gave you access to your account on a decentralized platform like Trust Wallet, it's a decentralized platform. There's no leadership. There's nobody running it. You can't call no one. There's no cell phone number. There's no, I lost my ID. I lost my, you lose your money, you lose it. So that's just how it is. Say, for example, Shiba. When Shiba went up, some point before Shiba started going up like crazy, I think a year plus ago, I bought some Shiba and I had it in my Trust wallet. I didn't know where I put my key, my C phrase. So, I think I probably texted to myself or something on my WhatsApp account just to have it on my other phone. That's what blessed me, because I couldn't access my money. And when it went up, I had like $16,000 in there at some point, and I couldn't access it. I had to go through my phone, my pictures for like months and months behind when I created the account. And then I was like, oh yeah, I finally found it 16 words, and boom, I was able to access it. So you have to, it's a level of responsibility, there's pros and cons with that. So if you're out of the US, and for most centralized exchanges that are secure, like Coinbase and Binance, they're regulated too within the
Right.
jurisdiction they're in. So if you're in
Hmm.
Liberia, you can't open a Coinbase account because they can't validate your identification, with
Right.
KYC and all of that.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
that's the thing. Then
And
you
that's
got it.
But I will say this though, like you only need Coinbase if you're typically trying to cash out. Right? That's typically when you need
Yeah.
these central, that's because that's the banking on and off ramp. But if
Yes.
you're just trying to go from crypto to crypto, you don't need Coinbase. You can just have your wallet, you can connect it to these trading websites that are not centralized, and you can trade between, crypto and stablecoin to crypto and stuff like that. So if you're not trying to get cash, you don't need Coinbase.
wait,
What you
wait,
can do sometimes if you
Gentlemen,
just want
before
to preserve your
before
oh
we
yeah.
before we extend our time here real quick, just to um we can talk right after, but let's conclude the conversation in terms of like, well, we talked about Cardano, we talked about the project, what the goal of the project is, how they're trying to prioritize scalability, sustainability, and interoperability. Uh, Currently, Cardano's been working so hard on just the governance model, which is part of their sustainability goal. And this is a huge goal. I think not just Cardano, but every single project in this space is trying to solve that problem. Even Alkebuleum too is trying to figure it out, hey, how do we create a sustainable platform, a sustainable project where even if the founders and the people that help build the system are not there anymore, the system can still, it can still improve itself, it becomes self-sufficient. That's where the concept of sustainability comes in place. And I'm so glad we had our guest Darlington in the house today. We also had Ernesto with Alkebuleum blockchain. He's one of the tech lead there, and I'm glad that they were able to come in and just share what they're doing in the space. Before further ado, before we close it, I just want to ask these two gentlemen, um, why do you guys think that folks in our community, the African community, the Liberian community, should start to look at blockchain and pay more attention to not just the investment part in terms of investing in some of these projects, but even paying attention to like developing applications on these projects? Why is it important? You got 1 minute each. Arlington.
Yeah, well, blockchain and even AI, they represent a big shift in how the world runs. Every time the world shifts, when we went from the Stone Age to the steam engine, from the steam engine and then industrialization and then the internet, every time these shifts happen, it's a giant window for social mobility, to improve yourself, to like create generational wealth, the opportunity to make more, to the is just way more plentiful during these shifting times. So if you're interested in that, if you're interested in social mobility, improving yourself, creating a different future than the one you've known, then pay attention to blockchain, because this is a huge shift on how the world runs. And then also, um, blockchain, like the way the internet changed on how you interact with your mom and your governments, blockchain is going to bring in a lot of control systems. Um, so you have to be educated, right? Before governments get these new powers that the blockchain will give them, you need to be educated to know when they're happening and to know when to say no and to make sure blockchain doesn't get abused, right? And make sure it's used for good, right? So and you
Absolutely.
can't do that if you're not educated. So
I like that.
two
I
good
like that.
reasons.
Ernesto.
Yeah, thanks, Darlington. That was a good help. So similar to what Darlington said, the blockchain system and AI too in connection is the future, and it already started now. People already been getting rich of it already, and people's lives have been changed. Social shifting, government, start to like change strategies and everything else. We talking about even the world financial systems, changing. Talking about XRP, talking about even Western Union changing strategy. All these different world powers are changing strategy based on the new technology. And some of the reason why we got in this space is because we're trying to make a change using this new system. And we realize that in Africa, where we're from, there are a lot of problems that exist there where we believe that the technology have the potential to help, to help fix or to help to solve some of them. And some of those problems that exist, is government corruptions. We have mismanagement of resources. We have corruption on all levels, not just government alone, but education. You have even from the streets to the high places. And when it comes to blockchain, because of its transparency, you can be able to like program anything in there to make it a place where people can utilize to enhance their project and also to remove corruption from the system. And in addition, fundraising, we don't have a system where we raise funds in Africa. It's
The
easy to do that
crowdfunding.
with a blockchain. Yeah, you raise funds, if you can create your tokens, and so long as it's being regulated, everything's being equal, meaning that if you have a good system on a good atmosphere being regulated, you can raise funds for your project easily. I know, right in Liberia, without all the systems that is required. We can also have, we don't have the stock market system that works here well in the Western world. And in Africa, because most countries don't have those things, you can utilize this new system to still make it possible. So we even though we don't have all these governmental systems, but we can use technology to make these things possible today if the people get on board. And to happen, we have to educate the people about it first. They have to have trust in it. The government got to accept the use of it, and the government got to regulate it. And then that's how it's going to work. So I think that's those three things that will come in place first before the technology actually start to benefit the people over there. That's the reason why I'm in this field, to make a change, and that's the reason why I'm going to be in it for a long run.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is it, man, people. You've heard it from the experts. This whole space is emerging, and there's a lot to learn in this whole blockchain space. And one of the things that Darlington just talked about that really strikes some nerve is like, hey, you want to be a part of the development process here. You don't want the government to come and just institute things. You want to be a part of that because you don't know what they're going to create. So you want to be a part of the implementation of these technology. Because obviously, if you have family, you have kids, they're going to be living in that world. So you want to contribute towards it as well. I encourage you to look into blockchain, look into the technology itself, not just, the investment part of it, but think about how do you build applications that can solve real world problems, because that's the real utility of blockchain technology. I want to say thank you to my guests for coming on today. Thanks for joining us at the Liberian Bitcoin Blockchain and Cryptocurrency Forum. This is conversation one of two. We just talked a little bit today about the Cardano's governance system. Our next conversation will dive more into some complex stuff about how the protocol works. So I encourage all of you to do your own research. Nothing we say in this video has any sort of investment. No investment. How do you call it, Arlington? No investment
Advice.
advice. This is just educational purpose only. So thank you all for coming, and we look forward to having you in our next interview. Thank you.